Bonjour et bienvenue à une autre conférence de presse avec le chef du nouveau Parti démocratique du Canada, Jagmeet Singh. Suite à quelques remarques de Jagmeet, nous allons prendre des questions des médias, en commençant avec les médias sur place. Ensuite, nous allons aux médias poser une question et une question de suivi. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another press conference with the leader of the New Democratic Party of Canada, Jagmeet Singh. After Jagmeet's remarks, we will take questions from media, starting with folks on the ground in Toronto, and then we will move to questions via Zoom. Please use the raise hand function to ask questions and if your question and follow-up question. So without further ado, Jagmeet, it's all yours.
Thanks, Nina. So we're in Toronto today, of course, in Toronto Danforth, and we've been speaking with people. Yesterday, I met with some residents, folks, a part of a tenant association, talked to them about what's going on in Toronto. And we know that things are bad across the country when it comes to affordability. People are having struggles with two things: groceries and housing. Specifically, finding a home that you can afford is becoming impossible. And in a time like this, where we see 1 in 10 Torontonian using the food bank usage is at a record high. The average rent now in Toronto is upwards of $2,900, almost $3,000 average rent for a one-bedroom apartment. We know that there's 80,000 people on a waiting list for affordable homes in Toronto. This is bad. This is rough. And it's not just in Toronto, it's across the country. The stories are the same. People I met with yesterday told me, one woman is on a fixed income. She's got a pension. She's got income coming in, but she is so afraid that if she loses the home that she's in right now, the place that she's renting, she's looked around and will not be able to find something that she can afford. If she loses her home, she lives in fear that she might end up homeless because there's nowhere else where she could afford to rent and also buy groceries and all the other life expenses. One of the men that I met yesterday, Sean, said him and his wife, they work, they've got decent jobs, and they live in a 2-bedroom, and they got 2 daughters. And his only hope is he just wants to make sure that each of his girls have their own bedroom. That's all he wants. He's happy to rent, but he cannot find anywhere that he can afford, even though he's working, doing everything right. All the while people are struggling with the cost of housing, struggling with the cost of buying their groceries, we see corporate landlords making record profits, and we see corporate grocery store chains also making record profits. And when all this is going on, what has been the federal Liberal government's response? Well, for 8 years, things have gotten worse. Rent has gone up, the cost of housing has gone up, and their approach to bringing down the price of groceries, well, wasn't to bring down the price of groceries. Their approach was to ask the CEOs nicely to stabilize the prices. This was a ridiculous plan, and it did not work. They asked people to check out grocery flyers, and then they backtracked and said, you know what, we don't actually know if the price of groceries is going down, because the plan that the CEOs came up with is too secret. And the corporate controlled conservatives aren't going to make anything better. They've made it very clear they are not interested in building homes you can afford. I'm standing in front of a cooperative right now, Bain Cooperative. We need more of these cooperatives. We need more housing like this. And Pierre Poilievre has come out and called this housing Soviet-style housing. People live in good quality, decent homes, which is affordable in these cooperatives, and we absolutely need to build more of them and make more homes cooperative. He's calling this Soviet-style housing insulting in putting down this type of housing, which is absolutely wrong. Well, it's not surprising because 50% of the governing body of the Conservative Party is made up of lobbyists. So their interest is in housing that makes profits for rich investors, not housing that's affordable for people. Pierre Poilievre's plan is going to cut all the things that people need. He's going to get rid of housing like these cooperatives. He is opposed to making life affordable. He's not who he says he is. So that's why New Democrats come in with our plan. We need to, in this next fall economic statement, we want to make sure that the fall economic statement presented by the government focuses on two things: housing and groceries. We want to see investments to make housing more affordable, not just any old housing. We need homes that are affordable. The Liberal government's plan so far to use public land to build homes has, in one project, only 13% of the housing affordable. 13% of our public lands being used for that little affordable housing is wrong. We need to see all public land being used entirely for affordable housing, not just a portion of it. That is the wrong approach. So what we're looking for in the fall economic statement a commitment to invest in affordable housing. And I emphasize affordable housing. We don't need more luxury condos or more homes that are out of reach for people. We need affordable housing. That's got to be the focus. A focus on not profit housing, cooperatives like the one behind me. We need more of these type of options for people so they can truly find homes that they can afford. We also need action to bring down the price of groceries. That's why our bill, which makes it clear that we want to take on the corporate greed, which is driving up the cost of housing. Again, I mentioned corporate greed is something neither the liberals or the conservatives will call out, but we know the major driver, one of the major drivers of inflation is corporate greed. Greedy corporations and CEOs using inflation as cover to drive up their profits and your costs. We need to tackle that. Our bill prevents price gouging and price fixing, takes on the consumer abuse that's going on, stops it, protects consumers, takes away power from those greedy CEOs, and brings down the price of groceries. That's what we want to see in the fall economic statement. Real action to bring down the cost of rent and bring down the cost of groceries. That's what we expect to see. I'll do that again in French, and then I look forward to your questions. Donc, on est dans une crise d'abordabilité. C'est clair que le coût de la vie augmente. Ici à Toronto, on a entendu des histoires des gens qui disent que c'est impossible de trouver du logement abordable et c'est impossible d'acheter des épiceries pour la famille. Donc, pour la mise à jour économique de l'automne, on demande que le gouvernement prenne des actions concrètes pour investir davantage pour créer du logement abordable, pour réduire les coûts du logement et pour réduire les coûts d'épicerie. Ça, c'est notre demande. On a 8 ans de gouvernement libéral et après 8 ans du gouvernement libéral, les coûts de toutes les choses dans la vie ont augmenté. Les loyers augmentés, les épiceries augmenté. Donc, les coûts sont augmentés et les libéraux n'ont pas agi pour réduire les coûts. Et les conservateurs sont contrôlés par les grandes entreprises et vont couper les services dont vous avez besoin et ils ne vont pas investir dans du logement abordable. Ils ne vont pas avoir le courage pour faire face à l'avarice ou la cupidité des grandes entreprises qui augmentent le prix, le coût de la vie. Donc, c'est nous les néo-démocrates qui offrent une solution concrète. On va demander à ce gouvernement de mettre de l'avant des mesures pour construire du logement abordable, réduire les loyers, réduire les coûts d'épicerie. Ça, c'est ce qu'on demande dans la mise à jour économique de l'automne. Avec ça, je suis prêt pour vos questions. With that, I'm ready for any questions you might have.
All right, we're going to do one question, one follow-up starting on site. We'll start with CP24.
Sure.
The House is only scheduled to sit for one more month, and so far the Liberals haven't tabled pharmacare legislation. If that isn't tabled and passed by the end of 2023 as prescribed in the Liberal NDP deal, will you pull your party's support?
We made it really clear that we want to see pharmacare for all Canadians. We want to see that brought forward. We're still in negotiations. We're fighting hard. Right now, the sticking point is the Liberals want to bring in legislation that appeases the big pharmaceutical industry. We don't care about them. We don't want to appease them. We want to make sure Canadians can afford their medication. That's our priority. So that's our difference right now. The Liberals are on the side of big pharmaceuticals. We're on the side of families, working people, seniors, people that need medication. And we believe it should be universal and public and affordable. Our plan would bring down the cost for everybody, and we're going to keep on fighting.
Follow-up?
Yeah, follow-up. Have you seen a copy of any bill, been involved in any recent consultations or been given any assurances the bill will be tabled and fast-tracked?
We've seen a first draft, and we made it very clear that first draft was insufficient for our support. And so the government's taken that back and are working on some amendments. So we'll monitor very closely the situation. We're pushing very hard. We believe that Canadians need a break. We need to see some savings in people's lives. That's why we're calling for action on housing, action on grocery prices. That's why we brought in dental care. Seniors are going to get dental care by the end of this year because of us, because we fought hard to make that happen. So we're going to keep on fighting to make sure people get the relief they need.
Okay, we're going to go to Omni Television next.
Yesterday, there were Palestinian protesters tracing the Prime Minister out of a restaurant in Vancouver. And the fact that 100 police officers had to respond with 2 protesters being arrested, one for assaulting and the other for obstruction. What's your intake on that?
I missed a bit of the question, but I understand you're asking
Yeah.
about the protest
Yeah.
towards the prime minister
Yesterday.
around what's going on in Israel and Palestine.
Yeah.
So our concern is that so far the prime minister hasn't taken a position on ceasefire and the release of hostages. That position, we've been calling for that for weeks now. We've seen the horror that's going on. We condemn what's happened by Hamas, the terrorist attack of Hamas. We condemn that unequivocally. I also want to mention we've learned, and I'm really heartbroken about this, we've learned about Vivian Silver, who is a Canadian, a longtime peace advocate, and someone who's been an activist for peace. I met with Vivian Silver's son, and we've heard from both her sons who talked about the need for a ceasefire and the release of hostages. They believed that their mom would be so sad to see the violence that's going on because she was such a peace activist. But we've learned that Vivian Silver is now confirmed that she was dead. She was killed on October 7th in the first Hamas attack, the atrocities committed. She was killed. My heart breaks. I met with the sons, and one of the son, and I just my heart goes out to the family and to all Canadians and to frankly all people. She was a voice for peace. She did so much work towards bringing people together. She would bring people that were sick in Gaza across the border to get help in Israel. She was an incredible person, and my heart is broken. And she is another reason why we need to stop the violence and why Canada has to take a position of a ceasefire and releasing all hostages. So far, the Prime Minister hasn't taken that position. Canada has abstained on important votes on a ceasefire at the United Nations. I believe Canada should take that strong position that we believe in peace, we believe in a ceasefire and a release of hostages, and we need to do that and take that voice and make that stand as clear as possible, as soon as possible.
Go for a follow-up.
Yeah. So what should we respond to? They sent 100 police officers to deal with two protesters.
For two protesters?
Yeah, they sent hundreds police officers to deal with them.
I don't know the details of that, but if it was only a couple of protesters and hundreds of police, that seems to be a heavy-handed response to that. But I want to be clear, people are frustrated because Canada has not taken that position. Justin Trudeau has not taken that position of a ceasefire and a release of hostages. I believe Canada should be taking that position. I don't know how you can see what's going on, the horror, the pain, the loss of life, and not be a voice for a ceasefire. We, of course, condemn Hamas unequivocally. And we also say at this point, we need a ceasefire.
Okay, we're going to go to the Zoom line for some more questions.
Sure.
Thank you very much. So we'll start with Peter with the CBC. Please go ahead.
Hello, Jagmeet Singh. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. So two questions. The first one I wanted to ask you about the fall economic statement. You've said it's coming next week. You've mentioned the pharmacare plan. I would like to know if you have some specific red lines onto what you must see or must not see with respect to pharmacare in order to continue to support your pact with the government, or other issues. Are there things that will pop up or won't pop up that will cause you to change your position on this plan?
Thanks for the question. So I don't think we're going to get to the point where we need to get on pharmacare by next week. So that's going to be an ongoing negotiation. So I'm not worried about next week in terms of pharmacare, but I do want to see certain things. And I want to be very clear. I expect in the fall economic statement, clear action on the two major challenges that people are faced with when it comes to affordability. And that's grocery prices and the cost of housing. I want to see real investments in building affordable housing, places where people can afford to rent, ways to bring down the cost of rent. That's what I want to see in this economic statement. If the government has been paying any attention to what's going on in this country, they will hear what we're demanding and what people are demanding, which is action on housing. And I mean affordable housing. I met one of the residents that I met. She talked about the fact that she is sick of seeing more luxury condos going up. That's not going to fix the problem. When people are saying they can't afford what the market rent is or the market cost of a home, how is building more luxury condos going to solve that? And so I want to make a really clear message to the Prime Minister. We need more affordable housing, homes that people can actually afford to rent. That's what we need to see the investments in. The second thing is action on the grocery prices. We know Canadians were polled and they were asked very clearly, as much as Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives want to distract them, as much as the big lobby liberals don't want to listen to people, people are saying very clearly when asked, what is a major driver of the cost of groceries? People know the truth. And they said corporate greed. And that is the fact. That's one of the major drivers of inflation right now. High cost of housing, high cost of mortgage, and the high cost of groceries largely being driven up by corporate greed. And so we need to see actions on bringing down the cost of groceries, actions on housing, specifically affordable housing. That's what we want to see in the fall economic statement.
Okay, and a follow-up question, which is yesterday the Prime Minister kind of changed his language towards Israel, saying that he wanted to see maximum restraint. This must stop, words that he used. He has since been roundly criticized by many voices in the Israeli and Jewish community, as well as being shouted down in a restaurant by pro-Palestinian protesters yesterday. What do you make of this new tone in his comments about maximum restraint?
Well, what we're seeing in Gaza is heartbreaking. I think that anyone who's seen any of the images, a hospital being targeted, and the violence around the fact that hospitals are targeted in the sense that they don't have access to the resources they need to run. We've got hospitals where the World Health Organization is saying that this is a humanitarian crisis where there's not the resources, the fuel, the electricity, the medical equipment to provide care to children that are in incubators. I mean, this is really heartbreaking to see the images, and I think we can't turn away from them. They're haunting to see the violence, the destruction, the lives lost. We are unequivocal in our condemnation of the terrorist actions and the terrorist group Hamas. Their atrocities should be condemned and have to be condemned. And at the same time, we also are seeing just this horrific violence continuing, and we want to see an end. And so I would say to Justin Trudeau what I said to him in our urgent meeting that I requested, the same thing. Canada needs to take a position in support of a ceasefire and a release of hostages. We've got to support an end to the violence, and we've got to see a path towards peace. We believe in a two-state solution, and we want to see the people of Israel live in peace and security. We want to see the people of Palestine live in peace and security. And we've got to do our part as a nation that's long held a reputation for defending peace and supporting the sanctity of life. We have to take that position again.
We will now go to Catherine Lévesque with the National Post. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Singh.
Hi there.
Just back on pharmacare, I was wondering if you could be more precise on what the sticking point is in the negotiations with the Liberals. You said it's, they're trying to appease big pharma. So what is it exactly that you don't agree with and that they have to go back to the drawing table for?
Thanks for the question. So the Liberals want to leave the door open for some form of mixed public-private, where the pharmaceutical industries continue to make huge profits. The pharmaceutical industry doesn't like the idea of a universal public pharmacare where we cover everybody. They don't want that to happen. They're opposed to that. Unsurprisingly, not only are the insurance companies, but the pharmaceutical companies are both opposed to this because it's going to mean that we end up saving money for Canadians. We buy our medication in bulk, which reduces the cost, and we don't have to deal with costly insurance programs, but we have a universal program. So the Liberals want to continue to appease those wealthy sectors, and we want to make sure people get fairness. That's the sticking point, and we're going to keep on fighting, though. We've never backed down, and we can show a track record. We said we want to give people a doubling of the GST rebate, more money in their pocket. The Liberals said no. We said it has to happen. We made it happen twice. And for some families, they got as much as $1,000 in 2 years. The Liberals said no to dental care. Very clearly, the Conservatives teamed up with them. Despite themselves having taxpayer-funded dental care, they said no to kids and seniors and people living with disabilities getting dental care. We fought back, and now we're going to see that delivered by the end of this year. So we are going to remain resolute in fighting for people. We have always said our commitment is to make life better for people, and that's what our guiding light is whenever we are faced with these decisions. How do we keep on using the power we have in a minority government to give people that break? Dental care so they can take care of their teeth. Pharmacare so the cost of medication is not something that is a burden on people's shoulders. Helping them with affordable homes. We're going to keep on using our power to deliver for Canadians.
So as a follow-up, do you think it's realistic to have legislation tabled and passed by the end of the year? And just on the whole other subject, the public inquiry on foreign interference, I was just wondering if the NDP will be seeking standing, will want to be a participant in that.
On the first question, yeah, it's absolutely possible. The Liberals could do it. We've got a bill on it. They could just table our bill tomorrow if they want it, or when we're back in session. They could table it and get it done right away next week. So there's no reason for it to be delayed. But we'll keep on fighting, keep on negotiating. On the standing question, we're open to that. We're going to take a look at that and see if that is an appropriate step for us. But what we really want in this whole public inquiry, reason why we fought for it from the beginning, is we want Canadians to know that there's an independent process that's taking these allegations of interference seriously, and that we have recommendations that actually ensure that our democracy is protected. That's our goal. We've long been critical of the conservative approach, which is to play games with this, to make this about partisan politics when it should be about defending our democracy. That's why we've called for a public inquiry, and we don't want this to turn into a partisan affair. We want this to be about protecting democracy, giving Canadians confidence in our electoral system, and that's our goal. I think that the Conservatives have really used this as a game, a political game. For us, it's not a game. It's about making sure we trust our electoral process and we do everything to protect it.
We now have a question from Nujudan Malis with the Canadian Press. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Singh. On the fall economic statement, I'm wondering if you could be more specific about any measures that you are specifically looking for in the fall economic statement, and whether you are hinging your party's support for a budget implementation act on those being delivered in the fall economic statement.
I missed that question. If you could just, if there's a way for you to speak louder into
Sorry,
your mic.
can you hear me right? Can you hear me now?
It's better now, yeah.
Okay, I'm wondering if you could be more specific about your demands for the fall economic statement when it comes to housing and groceries, and whether you were hinging your support based on those demands.
Yeah, so specific things we want to see in the fall economic statement. We know that people are hurting, and I shared with you the stories of people that I met that are having a hard time finding a home they can afford or a home that fits their needs. So we want to see in this fall economic statement action on building affordable homes. That's what we want to see. While the Conservatives would be opposed to this cooperative behind me, they call this Soviet-style housing. We want to see more cooperative housing, more not-for-profit housing, more housing that actually is there for people. So that's our focus. And we want to see that in the fall economic statement. Investments on housing that's affordable, affordable rents, things like not-for-profits, things like cooperative housing, real solutions that give people a real hope that they can have a home, that they're not afraid of losing, that they can stay in, that's affordable. We also want to see action on grocery prices, specific measures like the one in my bill, which would end the practices of price gouging and price fixing. We all know that in Canada in 2018, the large bread producers and grocery stores colluded to increase the price of bread. How many thousands of families were not able to afford the food they needed because of that collusion? We want to see an end to those practices by strengthening the protection of consumers and strengthening the laws that are available to the Competition Bureau to enforce better protections for Canadian consumers. That's going to bring down the price of groceries. So we want to see those really are the two major focuses. And we are always looking for ways to use our power to get this government to deliver. And we're going to see what this government does when it comes to the fall economic statement. But we put our demands very clearly: action on affordable housing, action on grocery prices.
And a question on Israel and Gaza. I'm wondering what your reaction is to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calling out Trudeau yesterday for Trudeau's remarks.
Sorry, calling out Trudeau for
his remarks yesterday about maximum restraint. Netanyahu tweeted after that in reaction and was not happy.
Well, I'm not surprised that Netanyahu is concerned about being criticized. This is a leader that has been criticized by the people of Israel soundly, is running an extremist government. The Netanyahu government is an extremist government. This is an extremist himself with very dangerous policies, dangerous to democracy, dangerous to the people of Israel. People in Israel have very actively opposed his agenda, have protested him. And so I'm not surprised that he is responding. There should obviously be a full respect for international law, and there are deep concerns about that not being followed. And so that's a fair criticism. My concern about Prime Minister Trudeau is that he has not yet taken the position of a ceasefire and a release of hostages. That combined position is one that we need to take as a nation. We play a very significant role in the world. Our voice would have weight, would make a difference if we were to call for that combined position as a nation of a release of hostages and a ceasefire to stop the violence, to be a voice for peace. That would be something very important and very significant. And so far, the Prime Minister has not taken that stance, and that is something people are critical of, and I understand why.
We'll now go to Raisa Patel with the Toronto Star. Please go ahead.
Sure.
Hi, Mr. Singh. Thanks for taking our questions. You say that you're going to keep on fighting to get the pharmacare vision that you want, but what exactly does that mean? What does that look like? We have 20 sitting days left, and the Liberals don't seem open to your vision, to your plan. So walk us through how you're going to get them to agree to your demands.
This is, Raisa, very similar to the position we were in last year when it came to dental care for kids under 12. We said that kids under 12 need to get dental care. And the Liberals said we can't meet that deadline. They said it's not possible. They said we can't do it. They were very flat out about it around the same time last year. And we said, no, you've got to do it. We kept the pressure going. We continued the negotiations. We kept the pressure up. And then we got it. And that there are families in our country, over 300,000 kids were able to get that benefit. And I met with Brianna, who is a mom in Edmonton, who, because we did not give up, in the same situation we are with pharmacare, we were with dental care in the same situation. Because we did not give up, Brianna's 5 kids who were under 12, each one of them got to see the dentist for the first time. And I met with them in a park. I could see their bright smiles. I can see it right now. It brings a smile to my face. They were better off because we fought for them. We got them that dental care benefit. Similarly, we know Canadians will be better off if we can lay the foundation for pharmacare to bring down the cost of medication. We're in that same position that we were last year. When it came to dental care, we won. We're going to fight hard now. We've got some time in front of us. We're not going to back down.
And as a follow-up, you've spoken a lot about how pharmacare is a critical program for Canadians struggling to take care of themselves, but you've shied away from saying what exactly you will do for those people if the Liberals don't meet your goals for legislation for a program by the end of the year. So are you prepared to compromise on some kind of alternative pathway that doesn't involve passing legislation by the end of the year if you want to help those Canadians?
Well, our guiding principle, to go back to our guiding principle, is how do we get as much help as possible for Canadians with the power that we have? That's why we're calling in the fall economic statement for investments in affordable housing and action on lowering the price of groceries. We want to use the power we have to give people a break. That's why we're pushing for that dental care, using the power we have to save people the cost of going to the dentist and to make sure people are healthier. So we want to use the power that we have to give people a break. On pharmacare, it's the same thing. We know this is important. We want to find a way to give people that break. We made it very clear. Our membership has made it really clear. We believe in pharmacare that's good for people. The Liberals believe in pharmacare that's good for pharmaceutical industries and for insurance companies. We disagree with them. And so that's why we're in this fight right now. The sides are clear. Whose side we're on? The side of people, workers, families, seniors, people that need their medication. The Liberals are on the side of big insurance companies and big pharma. We think they're on the wrong side of this. And so we're not going to back down. We're going to keep the pressure going. We believe that we are in the right. The government's own commission laid clear the steps that need to be taken. And we're going to continue to push for what will benefit Canadians. And we'll use the power that we have to continue to deliver that relief that Canadians deserve.
We will now go to David Baxter with Global. Please go ahead.
Sure.
Good afternoon, Mr. Singh, and thanks for taking the question. So you're just saying you're not going to back down on pharmacare. Is that a yes that you will pull support if we don't see legislation passed in the next 20 days? Well, 20 sitting days?
We made it really clear what we want to see happen, and we're in negotiations right now, so we're going to keep up the pressure. And the Liberals know exactly what we want, and we're going to continue those negotiations.
But is that a yes that you've got the mandate from your membership? It's clearly outlined in the Supply of Confidence Agreement, introduce and pass the Canada Pharmacare Act by the end of 2023. If that central goal is not hit by December 15th, 1 month from today, will you pull out of the supply and confidence agreement?
We made our demands really clear. And like I said, we're in the same position we were last year. The Liberals said we couldn't do it. That was also a firm requirement of our agreement. But we forced this Liberal government to deliver dental care for kids under 12. They said they couldn't do it. Around the same time last year, they were saying, no, it's not possible. We can't do it. We can't meet this deadline. We got it done. So we're not going to look into the future. We're going to focus on right now. We're in the same position we were before, and we're going to use the power we have to fight to deliver help to Canadians. Pharmacare is something we believe in. The Liberals know how important it is, and we're not going to back down.
Nous allons maintenant à Mélanie Marquis avec la presse. C'est à vous.
Merci. Bonjour, Monsieur Singh. J'espère que vous m'entendez bien. Je
Oui.
veux revenir sur merci. Je veux revenir sur le tweet de Monsieur Netanyahou. Monsieur Netanyahou qui a critiqué Monsieur Trudeau. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez que Monsieur Netanyahou essaie de faire? Puis, qu'est-ce que ça dit de la marge de manœuvre des pays comme le Canada et comme la France aussi qui sont allés jusqu'à réclamer un cessez-le-feu?
On a déjà critiqué Netanyahou. C'est clair que c'est quelqu'un qui était critiqué par les citoyens d'Israël eux-mêmes parce que c'est un leader, quelqu'un qui a des propos, qui dit des propos extrémistes, des valeurs extrémistes, et c'est quelqu'un qui mérite la critique. Donc, je ne suis pas surpris qu'il a répondu sur les critiques de Premier ministre Trudeau. Mais mon inquiétude, c'est le fait que le Canada doit prendre une position d'appuyer un cessez-le-feu et que les otages soient libérés. Jusqu'à ce moment, le Premier ministre n'a pas pris cette position et je pense qu'il doit prendre cette position. Le Canada était, dans le passé, un pays avec une réputation d'appuyer la paix, de défendre la paix, et on doit le faire encore avec une position ferme et concrète pour appuyer une demande de cesser le feu et que les otages soient libérés.
En même temps, M. Singh, il y a quelques jours à l'ONU, le Canada a voté contre une résolution qui condamnait les activités de colonisation israélienne. Qu'est-ce que vous pensez de cette position-là canadienne qui a été exprimée à l'ONU?
Je pense dans quelques votes que le Canada a pris des mauvaises positions. Je pense aussi d'une motion dans les Nations unies sur la question de cesser le feu. Et le Canada n'a pas voté dans cette vote important. Donc, encore, je condamne je condamne avec toute la force de ma voix les actes terroristes de Hamas. Je condamne les actes terroristes et je dis aussi que le Canada doit demander un cessez-le-feu et que les otages soient libérés. Ce qu'on voit, les images, la violence, la destruction, les enfants, les familles, les personnes tuées dans ce conflit, ça demande, toute cette violence demande que le Canada prenne une geste pour le pays. Et ça, c'est une demande pour un cessez-le-feu et que les otages soient libérés.
We're going to take two last questions online, and then we'll go for one last question in person. So, je vais aller à Michel Sabat avec la presse canadienne. C'est à toi.
Bonjour, Monsieur Singh. D'abord, sur le projet de loi d'assurance médicaments, j'aimerais savoir qu'est-ce qui accroche en français et quel compromis avez-vous à offrir pour obtenir un deal, comme on dit en bon français, d'ici Noël?
Donc, ce qu'on demande, c'est une assurance médicaments universelle publique, une assurance médicaments qui fonctionne pour les familles, pour les travailleurs, pour les personnes âgées, qui fonctionne pour les peuples. Et ce que le gouvernement libéral veut voir, c'est une approche qui plaire les grandes entreprises pharmaceutiques et d'assurance. Et ça, c'est la différence. On est là pour les familles, les gens, les peuples, et le gouvernement libéral veut défendre les profits des grandes entreprises pharmaceutiques et d'assurance. Ça, c'est où nous ne sommes pas d'accord. Mais on va continuer. On est en train de négocier. On va continuer de mettre la pression. J'ai souligné le fait qu'on était dans la même situation, la même position, presque la même position l'année dernière avec les soins dentaires pour les enfants. Quand le gouvernement libéral a dit qu'on ne peut pas le livrer, c'est impossible, les dates sont trop difficiles, mais on n'a pas lâché et on a gagné ce programme pour les familles. Et j'ai partagé l'histoire de Brianna, une mère à Edmonton, et elle a 5 enfants moins de 12 ans, et chacun de ces 5 enfants ont reçu les soins dentaires à cause de nos efforts. Et j'ai joué dans le parc avec les enfants de Brianna, on était ensemble, et je peux rappeler à ce moment leur souris et comment on a changé la vie pour ces enfants. C'est exactement ce qu'on va faire encore avec la science médicaments. Donc, on ne lâche pas, on va continuer.
Pourriez-vous aussi développer un peu sur ce qui agace, selon vous, les compagnies pharmaceutiques et les libéraux, comme vous l'avez fait en anglais? Puis, sur l'énoncé économique, votre appui aux libéraux est-il en jeu et sur quelle mesure?
Donc, ce que les libéraux, la raison pour laquelle les libéraux défendent les entreprises pharmaceutiques et d'assurance, parce qu'ils ont peur que vaccination, médicaments universels et publics, ça va réduire le profit. C'est ça. Parce qu'un programme universel et public va réduire les coûts pour les médicaments. On peut acheter les médicaments ensemble avec la puissance du pays. Ça va réduire le coût pour les Canadiens, pour les provinces et les territoires et pour le gouvernement fédéral, enfin. Mais ça va aussi réduire les profits des grandes entreprises pharmaceutiques et d'assurance. Donc, ça, c'est pourquoi ils ne sont pas d'accord avec ce plan. Et ça, c'est pourquoi le gouvernement libéral veut défendre ces entreprises et leurs profits. Nous voulons avoir un programme qui est bon pour les gens, les citoyens, les peuples. Et ça, c'est les différences. Avec la mise à jour économique de l'automne, notre demande, c'est on veut voir d'actions pour construire plus de logements abordables, particulièrement les appartements à loyer. Ça, c'est important. Les mesures pour avoir plus de coopératifs, comme le projet derrière moi, c'est un projet abordable qui a donné une maison abordable pour plusieurs familles. On veut voir plus de ça, plus des constructions et des investissements davantage pour avoir plus des coopératives ou des logements à but non lucratif. Donc, ça, c'est important pour nous. Et des actions pour réduire les coûts d'épicerie. Ça, c'est aussi tellement important. Donc, ce sont les deux enjeux où on veut voir l'action. Et on a montré ça au gouvernement libéral. Les libéraux savent notre position. Donc, on va voir ce qu'ils annoncent. Mais notre demande est là et on veut voir des actions pour aider les gens.
Last question online is from Peter with the CBC. Please go ahead. I guess we are, nope. Okay, perfect. So I'm going to throw it back to you, James, for the last question in person.
Okay,
Yes.
we got one last question from Omni here.
Yeah. Have you spoken to Prime Minister Trudeau at all about the APEC meeting?
About which meeting?
APEC. The APEC happening in San Francisco now.
Oh, okay. We've not been able to speak about that meeting, but I've made my demands really clear around what we want to see in terms of the next steps, in terms of the fall economic statement, the next steps in terms of making sure we take a position as a nation on foreign affairs matters, like making sure we take a ceasefire position and a release of hostages. So I've made those positions very clear in meetings with the Prime Minister, but we've not discussed that most recent visit to San Francisco. Yeah. Are you with the journalist, Alden? No, I'm not. I'll chat with you in one quick second. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks all. Merci beaucoup.
This concludes our press conference. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.